The plasma blast missed Dr. Sarah Chen's head by mere centimeters. She dove behind a twisted metal barrier as another searing bolt of energy carved through the air where she had been standing. The acrid smell of molten steel filled her nostrils. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she pressed her back against the makeshift cover. "Human, stay down." The voice that called out was unlike anything she had ever heard. It clicked and chittered, yet somehow she understood every word through. Her universal translator, Sarah, risked a glance around the barrier. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. A creature stood between her and her attackers, easily 8 feet tall, with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Its chitinous exoskeleton gleamed like polished obsidian in the harsh industrial lighting of the space station. Insectoid wings buzzed rapidly on its back as it moved with fluid. Deadly grace, the Kethaneri warrior 4. That's what it had to be wielded to. Energy rifles with its upper arms while its lower hands operated some kind of personal shield generator. Brilliant blue energy coursed between its mandibles as it returned fire at the 3-armed figures advancing down the corridor.
Dr. Chen!
The alien called again, its compound eyes somehow finding her, despite facing the opposite direction. "The service tunnel behind you. Go now." Sarah's mind reeled. She was Dr. Sarah Chen, xenobiologist for the Terran Colonial Research Initiative. She had been on this neutral trading station for only 6 hours, conducting routine biological surveys. How did this creature know her name? Why was it protecting her? The attacker she could see now they were Valak's pirates. Their gray skin marked with the distinctive scarification of their criminal clans pressed forward. Their energy weapons spat death down the corridor. "I said go," like the Kethaneri warrior roared, and Sarah heard something in that alien voice that transcended species barriers. It was the sound of someone willing to die for another. She scrambled toward the maintenance tunnel, her hands shaking as she worked the manual controls. Behind her, the sound of weapons fire intensified. She heard the Kethaneri warrior grunt. In pain? As the tunnel hatch hissed open, Sarah turned back one last time. The warrior had taken a hit to its left wing, purple ichor streaming down its carapace, but it never gave ground. It never stopped fighting. "Why?" she called out. "Why are you helping me?" The Kethaneri-esque compound eyes fixed on her for a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity. When it spoke, its voice was softer, almost reverent. "Because you are Sarah Chen, and protecting Dr. Sarah Chen is worth any price." Before she could ask what that meant, a massive explosion rocked the station. Emergency klaxons wailed as the lights flickered and died. In the chaos and darkness, Sarah heard the Kethaneri warrior scream not in pain, but in rage. The last thing she saw before the emergency barriers slammed shut was the warrior's forearms, moving in a blur of motion, carving through the Valak's pirates like they were made of paper. Then silence. # Chapter 2. The message at Marl Marcus Rivera had been drinking his morning coffee when the message arrived. He set down his cup with deliberate care, as weathered, hands steady, despite the tremor of rage building in his chest. The holographic display showed the face of Captain Alina Torres, commanding officer of the cargo vessel Horizon's Edge. "Admiral, we've received Dr. Chen safely aboard our ship. She's shaken, but unharmed." Torres paused, her jaw tight. "Sir, there's something else. She insists you need to hear what happened on Kepler Station, about the Kethaneri who saved her." Rivera leaned back in his chair. At 62, he had seen 3 wars and countless skirmishes. He had watched colonies burn and good people die. But something in Torres' voice set off every instinct he had developed over 4 decades of military service. "Put her through, Captain." The hologram shifted, and Dr. Sarah Chen's face appeared. Even through the blue-tinted projection, Rivera could see the shock in her eyes. She had the look of someone who had stared death in the face and lived to tell about it. "Admiral Rivera," she began, her voice steady despite everything. "I need to report a significant development in human-alien relations." For the next 20 minutes, Sarah recounted the events on Kepler Station. She spoke of the Kethaneri warrior who had appeared from nowhere to defend her, how it had known her name, her mission, even details about her research that were classified at the highest levels. "But that's not the strangest part," Sarah continued. When I asked why it was helping me, the Kethaneri said protecting Dr. Sarah Chen was worth any price. Admiral, I'm nobody special. I'm a researcher studying extremophile bacteria. Why would an alien warrior risk its life for someone like me? Rivera felt something cold settle in his stomach. Dr. Chen, did this Kethaneri survive the attack? Sarah's expression darkened. I don't know. The station went into lockdown, and Captain Torres' team extracted me before we could confirm anything. But Admiral ... there's something else. She leaned closer to the camera. The pirates weren't random raiders. They were specifically hunting. For me, someone had given them detailed intelligence about my mission, my location, even my research schedule. The Admiral's coffee had gone cold, but he barely noticed. His mind was already racing through the implications. A targeted assassination attempt on a human civilian. An alien warrior willing to die to prevent it. And somewhere in the mix, conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of human intelligence. Dr. Chen, I want you to remain aboard Captain Torres' ship until further notice. Captain Torres, set course for Earth immediately. Full burn. Sir Torres interjected, that will put significant strain on our engines. I don't care if you have to push them until they melt. Rivera cut her off. Get Dr. Chen home now. As the transmission ended, Rivera stood and walked to the massive viewport that dominated one wall of his office. Outside, the Sol System defense fleet hung in formation around Earth like a protective shell. 300 vessels ranging from nimble corvettes to massive dreadnoughts. It's the most powerful military force humanity had ever assembled. He activated his secure communications array. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Rivera. Authorization, Alpha 77, Delta. I need an immediate conference with the Joint Chiefs. Priority 1. As he waited for the connection, Rivera's mind wandered to his grandfather's stories of the old wars on Earth, how nations would mobilize entire armies to rescue a single captured soldier. How the unwritten rule had always been simple, you don't abandon your own. The human race had grown beyond single nations now. They were a species, a family scattered across dozens of worlds, and someone had just tried to kill one of their family members. The conference hologram materialized, showing the faces of the 5 most powerful military leaders in human space. Fleet Admiral Zhang, Ground Forces Commander General Martinez, Intelligence Chief Director Hassan, Colonial Defense Coordinator Admiral Park, and Strategic Operations Head General Okafor. Ladies and gentlemen, Rivera began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. We have a situation. One of our civilians was targeted for assassination on a neutral station. The attack was coordinated, professional, and had inside intelligence support. More importantly, that civilian was saved by an alien warrior who was apparently willing to die for her. General Martinez leaned forward. What's our response, Marcus? Rivera's smile was cold as winter vacuum. Gentleman, lady, he said, his words measured and deliberate. Someone thought they could kill one of ours without consequence. I think it's time we reminded the galaxy why that's a very poor assumption. Are you proposing? Fleet Admiral Zhang asked. Rivera turned back to the viewport, watching the massive vessels of the defense fleet glide through space with lethal grace. We're going to thank our Kethaneri friends. Personally, Chapter 3. The fleet Kethter regained consciousness to the sound of his own heart's beating. Both of them were still working, which meant he was alive. Given the amount of weapons fire he had absorbed during the fight, this came as something of a surprise. He tried to move and immediately regretted the decision. Pain lanced through his left wing where the plasma bolt had nearly severed it from his thorax. His lower right arm felt wrong, probably fractured during the explosion, but he was alive. More importantly, the human was safe. Kethter forced his compound eyes to focus. He was in what appeared to be a medical bay, though the architecture was unfamiliar. The walls curved in a way that suggested organic construction, and the air carried scents he didn't recognize. Awake at last, warrior. Voice belonged to Zenara, a Kethaneri diplomat whose azure carapace marked her as a member of the intellectual caste. She approached his medical pod with the careful grace common to their species. Dr. Chen. Kethter's voice came out as a harsh rasp. Is she? Safe aboard a human vessel, heading home to their birth world, Zanara settled into the visitor's alcove beside his pod. You completed your mission, Kethta. The human lives. Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by confusion. Mission? Zanara, I was not on a mission. I was conducting routine trade negotiations when I heard the weapons fire. I simply ... acted. The diplomat's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Yes, you simply acted to save a human you had never met, risking your life against superior numbers and firepower. You have any idea what you have set in motion? Before Kether could respond, the medical bay's communication system activated. The holographic display showed the lean features of Captain Vexai, commander of the merchant vessel, Deep Current, that had extracted him from the station. Honored ones, Captain Vexai began, but his usual composure was badly shaken. We have ... a development.
Obvious.
Long-range sensors are detecting a massive hyperspace disturbance. Something very large is approaching this system. Zanara rose smoothly. How large, Captain? Multiple contacts. Dozens. All moving in perfect formation at military-grade hyperspace velocities. Vexai paused, consulting his instruments. Diplomat Zenera, preliminary analysis suggests these are human vessels. A lot of human vessels. Kether tried to sit up despite the pain. Impossible. Humans don't have a significant military presence. In this sector, the nearest human fleet base is dropping out of hyperspace now, Vexai interrupted. By the eternal swarm. One count 47 vessels. Dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers. This isn't a patrol force. This is a full fleet. Display shifted to show the external camera feed. Kether's breath caught in his throat as he watched ship after ship emerge from the swirling vortex of hyperspace. The human vessels were brutal in their efficiency, angular, aggressive designs that spoke of pure military function. They moved with the coordinated precision of a predator pack. They're hailing us, Vexai reported, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. All frequencies. The message is repeating in standard galactic Kethanari Valox and 17 other languages. Put it through, Zanara commanded. The display changed again, showing the weathered face of a human military officer. His uniform bore insignia that Kethra recognized as indicating very high rank. When the human spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. This is Admiral Marcus Rivera of the Terran Defense Fleet. We are here to speak with the Kethanari warrior. Who protected Dr. Sarah Chen on Kepler Station? Our sensors indicate you are aboard the vessel Deep Current. Please respond. Zanara and Kether exchanged glances. In all the recorded history of human-alien contact, nothing like this had ever happened. The humans had deployed a full military fleet. To thank someone, Captain Zanara called out. Inform the human admiral that the warrior he seeks is aboard our vessel. Request permission to come alongside their flagship. Diplomat Captain Vexai's voice carried a note of panic. Are we certain this is wise? Their flagship alone masses more than a battle station. If this is some form of retaliation, no. Kethter interrupted, his voice growing stronger. They didn't come here to fight. Look at their formation. Others focused on the tactical display. The human fleet had arranged itself in a perfect defensive sphere around the merchant vessel. Weapon systems powered down, shields at minimum strength. They're protecting us, Kethtor continued, with growing wonder. 47 military vessels, thousands of crew members traveling across light years of space, ... to say thank you. Zanara's mandibles clicked rapidly, the Kethanari equivalent of nervous laughter. Warrior, I think you may have underestimated exactly what kind of species you chose to help. Heshash, Chapter 4. The understanding the meeting took place aboard the human dreadnought. Indomitable. Kethter had expected a military briefing room stark, utilitarian, designed for efficiency over comfort. Instead, he found himself in what could only be described as a garden. Living plants from dozens of worlds created a riot of color and fragrance. Water flowed in carefully designed streams. and the lighting mimicked the warm radiance of a star, very much like the one that had once warmed his homeworld. "We wanted you to feel welcome," Admiral Rivera explained, as he guided Kethter and Zenara through the space. "Dr. Chen mentioned that your species has an affinity for growing things." Kethter touched one of the flowering vines with a trembling claw. It was a Kethenary morning bloomer flower that grew only in the sacred groves of his people. Where did you find these?" he asked nicely. Rivera said with a slight smile. "Turns out, when you explain that you want to properly honor someone who saved one of your people, most folks are pretty helpful." They settled around a table that had been constructed to accommodate both human and Kethenary physiology. Rivera was joined by 2 other humans, a woman in a uniform similar to his own, and a man in civilian clothes whose sharp eyes suggested intelligence work. Admiral Rivera, Zenara, began formally speaking for the Kethenary collective. "I must express our confusion at this response. While we deeply appreciate the honor you have shown Warrior Kethtor, surely a simple message of thanks would have sufficed. The deployment of such a significant military force seems disproportionate." Rivera leaned back in his chair, studying the alien diplomat with eyes that had seen too much war. "Ma'am, with respect, I don't think you understand what happened on that station." He activated a holographic display that showed a detailed schematic of Kepler Station. Red indicators marked the locations where the attack had taken place. "This wasn't a random pirate raid," Rivera continued. "Our intelligence analysis shows that Dr. Chen was specifically targeted. The attackers had classified information about her research, her schedule, even her personal preferences. This was an assassination attempt, planned and funded by parties unknown." The intelligence officer leaned forward. "Director Hassan, Tyrone Intelligence?" He introduced himself. "Warrior Kethtor, when you intervened, you didn't just save a human life. You disrupted what appears to be a coordinated effort to eliminate key researchers in our extremophile biology program." Kethtor's antenna twitched in confusion.
I do
"Not understand. Why would anyone wish to harm those who study simple bacteria?" "Because Dr. Chen's bacteria aren't simple," Rivera answered. "They're the key to terraforming hostile worlds. Her research could open up hundreds of new colonies for human expansion. Someone wanted that research destroyed, and her with it." Weight of this revelation settled over the room like a shroud. Zenara's carapace shifted through several color phases as she processed the implications. "You believe Warrior Kethtor prevented an act of economic warfare?" she said finally. "We believe Warrior Kethtor prevented something much worse than that," the female officer interjected. Rivera gestured to her. "Admiral Park, Colonial Defense Command." Park activated another section of the display, showing star charts marked with shipping routes and colony locations. "Dr. Chen's research isn't just about new colonies," Park explained. "It's about saving existing ones. We have 17 colonies facing atmospheric collapse within the next decade. Her bacteria could fix their ecosystems. Without her work—" She paused, letting the implications sink in.
Ow.
"Millions of people die." Kethtor felt his wings begin to tremble, not from injury, but from the magnitude of what he was hearing. "I did not know. Simply saw someone in danger and acted. Any honorable being would have done the same." Rivera's expression softened. "Warrior Kethtor, that's exactly the point. You saw a stranger, a member of a species you barely knew about, to be murdered, and you risked everything to save her. You didn't stop to calculate the strategic implications or weigh the potential benefits. You just acted because it was right." The Admiral stood and moved to one of the flowering vines. "Do you know what we call that in human culture?" "What?" Kethtor asked. "Family?" Rivera turned back to face them, his expression grave. "The human species has one absolute rule. We protect family. When someone protects one of ours, they become one of ours. That's not negotiable. It's not subject to debate or committee review. Just is." Zenara's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Admiral Rivera, surely you cannot mean, ma'am, I mean exactly what I said. Warrior Kethtor risked his life to save Dr. Chen. From our perspective, that makes him family. And we protect family." Rivera walked back to the table and placed a small device in front of Kethtor. It was clearly human technology, but modified with Kethenary biointerface ports. "This is a Terran Defense Fleet communication array," modified for your physiology. It's keyed to respond only to your biological signature and contains quantum encrypted channels to every major human military installation in known space. Kethter stared at the device as if it might explode. I do not understand its purpose. Ain't you're ever in trouble anywhere. Anytime you activate that device and say 4 words, Kethter needs immediate assistance. Within hours, help will arrive. Not maybe. Not if we can spare the resources. It will arrive. Rivera's voice took on the weight of absolute commitment. Warrior, we sent 47 ships and 15,000 crew members across known space to say thank you. Do you really think? We won't come if you need help. The silence that followed was broken only by the gentle sound of flowing water and the soft rustle of alien leaves. Finally, Zanara spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Rivera, do you realize what you are offering? The Kethenary Collective has a population of over 3 billion individuals across dozens of worlds. If word of this spreads, Rivera's smile was sharp as a blade. Ma'am, I'm hoping it spreads. I'm hoping every species in known space learns exactly what happens when someone helps humanity. Because the next time one of our people is in danger, maybe, just maybe, someone else will be willing to step forward and do what's right. He stood and extended his hand toward Kethter in the human gesture of respect. Warrior, thank you for protecting Dr. Chen. Thank you for showing us that honor and courage aren't limited to any one species. And thank you for reminding us why the bonds between good people are stronger than the vast dark between the stars. Kethter reached out with one of his upper arms and grasped the human's hand. The gesture felt strange, but somehow right. Admiral Rivera, he said softly, I believe I am beginning to understand why the galaxy fears your species. It is not because you are strong. It is because you remember. You remember kindness. You remember sacrifice. You remember those who stand with you when the darkness comes. Rivera nodded slowly. Yes, we remember. And we never forget our debts. Outside the garden room, through the massive transpersonal windows, the 47 ships of the Terran Defense Fleet hung in perfect formation against the starfield, a monument to the power of gratitude, a promise written in starlight and steel, and across the galaxy. Those who dealt in shadows and assassination took note and began to recalculate their plans, because humanity had just announced to the universe that protecting a human, any human, would be remembered and rewarded. But more importantly, those who would harm humanity's people now knew that someone was always watching. Someone was always listening, and someone would always come. Epilogue. Ripples 6 months later. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her laboratory aboard the research station New Horizons, watching bacterial cultures that might save 17 worlds grow in their biochambers. The work was going better than she had ever dreamed possible, partly because of the new funding that had mysteriously appeared in her research budget, partly because of the protection detail that shadowed her everywhere, not human security, but volunteers from a dozen different species who had heard the story of Kepler Station, but mostly because of the communication device that sat on her desk next to her coffee cup. It was Kethenary technology, modified with human quantum encryption. A gift from a friend who had become something more, a symbol of what different species could accomplish when they chose trust over fear. The device chimed softly, indicating an incoming message. Sarah smiled as Kethter's familiar form appeared. In holographic projection, Dr. Chen, he said, his mandibles clicking in the Kethenary equivalent of a smile. I hope your research progresses well. Better than I could have hoped, she replied. The bacterial colonies are adapting to the new environments faster than my models predicted. At this rate, we'll be ready for field trials within the year. Excellent news. I also have news to share. The Kethenary Collective has officially joined the Terran Alliance as full partners. The vote was unanimous. Sarah felt her breath catch. The Terran Alliance had been humanity's dream for decades. True partnership between species based on mutual respect and cooperation. With the Kethenary as full partners, that dream was finally becoming reality.
Kethter, that's incredible.
What changed their minds? The alien warrior's expression grew thoughtful. I think, Dr. Chen, that my people finally understood what your Admiral Rivera tried to tell us that day. The bonds between good people transcend species. When someone is willing to cross the galaxy to say thank you, when they offer protection, without asking for anything in return, ... That is not diplomacy. That is family. As the transmission ended, Sarah turned back to her bacterial cultures. Such small things, these microorganisms, barely visible even under magnification. Yet they held the power to transform dead worlds into gardens, to save millions of lives. To bridge the gap between species separated by vast distances and countless differences. Small acts of courage, she reflected, often had the largest consequences, somewhere in space. The communication relay network carried news of the Kethanari alliance to every human colony. On Earth, Admiral Rivera allowed himself a rare smile as he read the reports. Across known space, a dozen other species quietly began reassessing their relationships with both humanity and the Kethanari collective, and in the deepest shadows of the galaxy. Those who dealt in assassination and conspiracy found their work becoming increasingly difficult, because word had spread among the lawless and the lost. If you harm one of theirs, humanity remembers. If you help one of theirs, humanity remembers that too. The age of isolated species was ending. The age of chosen family, bound not by genetics or geography, but by shared values and mutual respect, was beginning. It had started with one human civilian in danger and one alien warrior brave enough to act. But like ripples spreading across still water, the consequences would reshape the galaxy. Some acts of kindness, Sarah Chen thought, as she returned to her work, echo across the stars. And some echoes never fade.